Good evening, I'm Leanne Young. Thanks for joining us. Thousands of revelers are expected at Sunset Beach tomorrow to smoke pot and celebrate weed culture as part of 420. But the park board is opposed to the event. It says the gathering violates no smoking bylaws, and last year's festivities left a big cleanup bill. Those are all issues being considered as preparations got underway. Our Tina Lovegreen reports.
Behind me, workers are busy laying down special turf protector in advance of tomorrow's unsanctioned 420 event. As you may recall, last year, the Vancouver Park Board had to close down the grass field here at Sunset Beach for a month to do repairs. And so I spoke to organizers today who said they didn't want that to happen again.
We believe we have a right to use the park, but of course we don't like to, damage the park in any way if we don't have to. Unfortunately, last year, before we got here, there was a lot of pools of water and a bunch of mud down here, and they hadn't reseeded the field for a few years. So once we were done with it last year, it did look a little bit muddy. This year, we're hoping our preparations make it so that doesn't happen at all.
Last year, the City of Vancouver said it incurred more than $245,000 in costs relating to two 420 events, one that was held here at Sunset Beach and another at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Organizers say they're prepared to pay for costs relating to the city and the park board for 420 events this year, but not for policing.
First off, 420 is still a protest, and what we're protesting is heavy-handed police authority and, ruining people's lives for so many years over cannabis. So it's hard to pay for policing of our event as a protest, especially when they don't give us a permit.
Organizers expect anywhere from 50 to 100,000 people to gather here tomorrow, starting at noon. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, tomorrow is also a professional development day at some schools in the Lower Mainland, and there are concerns teens may end up at the massive pot party in protest. And with legalization around the corner, how can parents and kids best prepare for the shift? It was the subject of a CBC forum earlier tonight. Mira Baines has the details.
Psychoactive compounded.
With the legalization of marijuana looming this summer, there are still big questions over pot use in teens. This public forum, 419, presented by CBC Vancouver, had teens and parents talking about their concerns.
I have a 15-year-old, and all her and her friends are going to be starting to drive. So my questions are around the, safety on the road.
This parent brought her 10-year-old son.
Anybody could give them a candy, you never know, especially in these days they're starting just as young as he was. I know the first time I was introduced to pot was 12.
Tomorrow's 420 celebration on Sunset Beach in Vancouver is top of mind. Last year, 35,000 attended the cannabis festival, including plenty of young people. And they have lots of questions about things like pot edibles. A health official warns that edibles can be harmful because sometimes users don't realize that it takes longer to feel the effects, so they take more.
At recent 420, about 75% of intoxications that came to the emergency department were from edibles.
420 also coincides with a professional development day at some schools, meaning high school students will get the day off. 5 high schools in North Vancouver, Coquitlam, Delta, and Port Moody have the day listed as a Pro D.
If you were a kid and you were on pot, what kind of help would you need to get off, or what would you need to go through to?
We're fortunate to have some good services for young people. One thing is that does a young person think there's a problem? Do they have any concern about it? Because if they don't, it's hard to do too much.
The majority of the people at the forum were parents trying to get ahead of the new pot laws taking effect this summer. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Number 6, King County deputies will conduct emphasis patrols tomorrow, 420 Day, a so-called pot holiday. Marijuana-impaired deaths in crashes on 420 often equal or surpass Super Bowl Sundays.
And a new report tonight is highlighting toxic trends among the state's youngest children. They're being exposed to and ingesting opioids and marijuana at alarming rates compared to past years, with the biggest increase, 40%, involving pot and children 5 years and younger. So tonight we want to take you in depth on the startling jump, what's behind it, and exactly why it's so alarming. Cairo 7's Allison Grandy has been digging into the report and takes you behind the headlines. Allison.
Sydney, we went through data from the Washington Poison Center and looked at the trend that has pediatricians so concerned. They told us that people are failing to keep cannabis away from children.
Washington Poison Center. This is Gordon. Can I help you?
The Washington Poison Center saw an alarming increase in the number of calls about children consuming cannabis, especially edibles.
We're concerned about this because we are concerned that children, young children, are unintentionally getting hold of cannabis products, and there can be potential serious toxicity from those.
Cairo 7 obtained the 2017 call data and found the number of calls increased by 40% since last year for children aged 5 and under.
There's mints and cookies and brownies and espresso and all these different mixes of different infused products that are really similar to products that we use on a daily basis.
Caregivers are calling the Poison Center.
So this is the call center, and this is where the calls come in
to report children with symptoms including
sleepiness, drowsiness, lethargy, sometimes even seizures or jerking movements of the arms and legs.
We looked into the laws around labeling edibles and found that in February of 2017, the rules changed. Those products now require clear warnings.
The distributors put the labels on, and there's a red hand on it, and it says not for kids, and it has the Poison Center phone number.
Likely adding to the increase in calls to the Poison Center.
I eat them, but I don't take none home at all.
We met Milena Gordon shopping at Diego Pellicer in Soto, where you can buy food, candy, even drinks with THC. She told us she keeps it away from her kids.
They would think it's just food.
I don't know any kids. Harley Clifton showed us how every package is labeled and told us she warned shoppers about edibles.
Generally, edibles for someone who doesn't want to smoke or maybe wants an even prolonged high, because edibles can last for up to about 8 hours.
The Poison Center says the THC in edibles has longer lasting clinical effects, and if a child eats more than one serving, the danger increases.
There have been reports that very young children that have accidentally gotten into cannabis products can actually stop breathing. Their breathing slows down to the point where it stops. And that obviously is a potentially life-threatening emergency.
Seattle Children's told us they've also seen an increase in cases where children are ingesting edibles. The Poison Center also saw an increase in calls about mixing cannabis with other drugs. Those calls increased 42% since last year. So are there more interactions and exposures for children, or are people more comfortable calling for help?
This could have been going on all along, and now people aren't afraid to call us anymore. They know that we're a resource that can help them without any punitive action, or the exposure rate has really gone up, and we have no way to prove that right now.
They told me they're especially concerned about children getting a hold of those packages of edibles that contain more than one serving. And once the package is open and the items are taken out, they just look like regular food.
And unfortunately, you don't know until it's too late. So, Allison, is there anything being done to reduce these exposures?
So there was a bill in the legislature last year that would have taken any of the packages that have more than one serving of the marijuana-infused items and required child-resistant packaging, and also to have each item stamped with a symbol that would indicate there's marijuana inside. But that bill never made it out of committee.
All right, so good information for parents and caregivers to be aware of. Allison Grandy, thank you for that report.
New at 7.